Spurs. Wiltor makes a run ahead of it. Bergkamp suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp! That's magnificent! The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Hello Gooners, and welcome back to another day of me and fellow Gooners and the occasional non-Arsenal fan doing our predictions for the upcoming season. And yesterday it was quite exciting. So first of all, introduce, I'm sure everybody here knows Tom. Tom, hello, how are you?
Very good, man. Very good. How are you?
Yeah, I've not had anything to eat. My cats are driving me up the wall. One of them is ill, and then I have to feed it separately, and then all the others are like hyenas watching her like that, ready to pounce as soon as she takes a breath to stop eating. And so, yeah, that's driving me up the wall. Congratulations on your golf thing yesterday. What did you raise? About £2.5 grand?
£1.5 grand in the end. We ended up raising about £1,000 for the Arsenal Foundation in a previous one. So yeah, I mean, charitably, we've done about £2.5 grand recently.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was very good. It's tiring, and I'm aching and feeling the pain of it today. But yeah, it was very good. Where
can people go if they want to go and donate? It's still not too late to donate, is it?
No, you can donate. If you go to on the last video on the Gooner Talk, in the description, there's a link that takes you there. So you can find all the information, any video description of the last month. There'll be a link in any of them. So there you go.
Good. Yeah. Have you got plans for any more? Because it does get a bit when you see how much good you can do by doing stuff like that, you do think, oh, I'm going to do some more.
Yeah, well, we do obviously the TGT merchandise, the caps that we sell, like half of the profits go to Canton Macmillan support and half of it goes to the Arsenal Foundation. So we do that consistently. But yeah, there's not a specific fundraiser coming at the moment, but we've done a fair few recently, and obviously I'm helping Mike out with all of his stuff, always promoting it where I can on Goodness versus Can. So I know that you supported that as well. So yeah, it's there's plenty of outlets out there if you're feeling generous and charitable.
It is. It's not only hard times for everybody living with daily life. It's hard times for charities that rely on donations to help people that really are in trouble. And so yeah, it's really good. So Mike mugged me off, and I sent him money, and I expected to win, and I didn't win. So I've asked my money back. And so far he's blanking me, which is not really surprising, is it? Right, let's get on and do this. These predictions. So. I come to the conclusion after doing this yesterday that quite a lot of Arsenal fans are simply deluded. But with some of the predictions that people have been making, it's absolutely mad. So this is your one. You're the 8th person to do it. Tom Canton Media and at the Gooner Talk TV. So the very first one we need to ask is who's going to win the Premier League next season and why?
Manchester City. Simply because they are. I look at everything logically. I try not to do it in a way in which I'm kind of my loyalty and enthusiasm for Arsenal takes over. I'd love it to, and I often, when I do my predictions on TGT for a preview show, I let it then. But yeah, when it comes to trying to be logical and predicting things, it only leans me into what is going to, I think, become a bit of a theme throughout this, is that they are the favourites for the Premier League, and so statistically and odds-wise, it makes sense to pick who are the favourites for the competition. So I just think that, again, even without Gundogan and Mahrez, potentially without Walker or maybe even Bernardo Silva, that they are still the best team in the league. Even with Arsenal adding £200 million worth of talent to the side, it shows you kind of the gap between ourselves and them. And I just don't see Liverpool having enough to challenge them either. I don't see Chelsea or Man United or Newcastle who are up there right now having enough to challenge them. But Arsenal, I think, are the best hope, obviously, of breaking that streak somewhat. Yeah, sorry, Mark. I can only apologise for my hubris in Man City side of things.
On a side note about the Liverpool, how much of an effect do you think it's going to have on the fact that they've lost Milner and they've lost Firmino and Fabinho? I always get those ones mixed up.
Henderson
and
as well,
Henderson.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like a generation's worth of talent and best part of 1,000 games for Liverpool gone. They can't
Yeah.
replace that in one season, can they?
No, they can't. And I do think there will be an impact of that. I think it would be naive to obviously rule them out entirely because they've got some quality players. They've brought in some very good players themselves. McAllister, very good. A certain player called Zoboslai, who I don't know if anyone's heard of before me
Never
talking
heard of
about.
him.
Never.
No.
Yeah, he's
Heartbreaker.
quite good as well, rather irritatingly he's gone there. So the only bright side to him moving there is that I might catch him in a mix zone after a game. That's the only benefit of Liverpool getting hold of Zoboslai. But certainly, I think with Jurgen Klopp, with players like Salah, with players like obviously Nunez has had a really good pre-season actually as well. Diaz is back to full fitness. He's available for selection. As I say, they've brought in some decent signings. Obviously, players like Van Dijk, Trent, etc. are always going to be a threat. So I think they'll still be up there. I still think we've got a better squad than them. Now, I think we've elevated ourselves above them in terms of a squad depth and competitivity. But yeah, I still think that Man City is far and away the best team out of us, ourselves, and Liverpool.
Remember, as we all know, you're a Red Bull Salzburg fan, and remember that striker they had who went to China. I was looking up his details the other day. And I think I can't remember where he'd went, but it was very sad. I've seen all them goals that he scored. And
was it Soriano? Sorry, Jonathan Soriano.
That's it. That's him, the Spanish bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what he's up to
Jonathan
now.
Soriano. Yeah, formerly of Barcelona. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing goal scoring talent. I mean, some of the goal scoring feats that he managed for was it Barcelona B, where he had more than a goal a game record or something similar to that.
Yeah, really, his record for Salzburg was unbelievable. Like he was up there. I did an interview with him like years ago now. Yeah, trying to reach out to do interviews, and like I asked him about like his goal scoring record, and he always brought up that because Austria isn't seen as the same level as obviously like La Liga and stuff like that, you don't get as many points in the race for like Golden Boot in Europe. So like
0.5, half a point rather than 1.
Yeah, it's not the same weighting. So even though he scored a ridiculous number of goals, but a goal's a goal at the end of the day. But because he didn't score like a silly amount, like 4 times that of Messi or Ronaldo, he never got kind of the accolade that he deserved. And you know, moved to China, continued to score goals. I think he played for the same team as I think Jonathan Vieira, who was a Spanish guy that used to play in La Liga, who moved there. There's one other famous face that went to that team. I can't remember what the team was called. And that's going to really bother me now as well. It's one of those things.
You'll end up down a Wikipedia wormhole if like I spent about 2 hours doing it the other night on just looking
Beijing Guan is what he paid for. So yeah, that was the team he played for.
Excellent. Right, where are Arsenal going to finish?
Second would be the estimation. I'd love to say they'd finish first. Would love to. But with Man City continuing to be the favourites, I think Arsenal will finish second. I think they've improved, obviously, the squad since last season. And I'm expecting them to progress. My expectation is that they need to close the gap between themselves and Man City. So I'm hoping for that to be a tighter finish at the end and perhaps, you know, push them all the way toward the end of the season. That would be brilliant. I'm not ruling out entirely that we could win the league. You know, I think there is obviously that chance still there. I think if Jesus can stay fit for the entirety of the season, I think if you know we can actually beat Man City in at least one of those 2 games in the Premier League, we give ourselves a fantastic chance. But you know, it would only be optimism that would lead me into predicting Arsenal to win the league at this stage, because I just think, with my logical head on, Man City remain the favourites for this.
Yeah, and it is. It's very annoying. But I've drank I'm still not sure. I think the Kool-Aid was some kind of cult back in America in the day. He drugged everyone by drinking poisoning the Kool-Aid. So I think I have completely drank the Kool-Aid, and I've got Arsenal to win the Premier League and the Champions League. So I think one of us is going to be very red-faced at the end of the season. We don't.
That shows you how far we've come, though, that we can believe that sort of thing.
That's a common theme, how excited everybody is. I was saying it's the most excited I've been for a season since the season after the Invincibles, and that was 2004, 5, 6.
Yeah, exactly.
5. Yeah, 4, 5. Wow. I remember I had the Villa fan on last night, and he said, "Oh, the last time Aston Villa won it, and we're in a cup final, I was still in nappies," and I was thinking, have I missed? Hold on, that was 2015, and then I realised he's only 19. And so he was still very young there. But that was Sebastian Bacon, who is an amazingly well-spoken, and he knows so much about football at such a young age. And that's why I ended up spending half an hour talking to him. Arsenal top goal scorer all competition. What are you going to go for? Because it's been Saka for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, I still think it will be Saka. I think he's just continuing to take his game to another level. I think he's obviously been, other than Trossard, perhaps the brightest in pre-season. So yeah, I do think Saka will be Arsenal's top scorer next season. I think the challenge for him now is to try and get to as close to, if not on, 20 Premier League goals. I think that's what he needs to try and aim for. More than 20 across all competitions. That's what he should be looking to try and get. And that's going to be tough, but that is what world-class wingers do. That is what ultimately we have to expect from a player of that caliber, and Saka is in that bracket of caliber. So, yeah, I think that 20 Premier League goals should be the target for Bukayo Saka. You know, scoring once every other game nearly, just more than that, is absolutely what I think that a player of his caliber should be looking to achieve. So, Saka.
Yeah, that's what I've gone with as well. Don One asked you a question. He says, a question for Tom. Would you take second in the Premier League, semi-finals of the Champions League, and an FA Cup win for next season and be happy?
I think I would be happy if that's how we ended the season. Yeah, I think I would be happy. Obviously, I'm always inclined to turn down these offers because I'm very much... I'm not one for like being guaranteed certain things. I like to see how things play out. But if you said, if that's what happened, would I be happy? I think I'd be happy at the end of that season. We picked up a trophy. We've progressed massively in the Champions League. And I'd be intrigued to see how close it was between us and City. And I look to City and see them as the best team in the country. So if we're behind only City, it makes sense that we're still on that thread of competing with them. But yeah, you know, I would end the season being happy if that was what it was at the end of the campaign.
But that would mean, I think, a best part, depending on the League Cup, that would be an almost 60-game season. That's when we're going to need that full squad. Where do you think Spurs are going to finish next season? We've got 2 on 7th, 4 on 8th, and Mike McDonald from Gunnerstown said 13th.
I'm not sure. Look, there's a lot of unknowns about Spurs because Ange Postecoglou is, you know, a very unknown coach. You know, yes, he comes from Celtic, and we've seen managers come from Celtic and do decent jobs like Brendan Rodgers. We've seen them come from Celtic, like like who's the other one? Was it Lennon that came into the Premier League at one point? And it's
Neil Lennon, yeah,
didn't do that great, you know. Like, so I look at these coaches and think it's hit or miss. You don't know what's going to happen. And with him being, you know, very much, he's built up a lot of his career abroad, did a lot in Asia and of course in Australia as well. And so it's intriguing to see how his coaching style might work. Spurs are a side that have needed a coach that can, you know, maximize the potential of their players for a long time. Is it going to be him? It's difficult. So to answer this question, I kind of worked out which teams do I think will finish above Spurs to kind of come to the answer. So obviously Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United, you expect all to finish out of them, and those being the other big 5. I wouldn't even call Spurs a big 6 club. A great channel that I've become aware of and spoken to, a guy called Rory Talks Football that you've maybe become aware of. He did a fantastic rant about why Spurs aren't a big 6 club, and it was like absolutely spot on. It was so accurate. You know, Newcastle I'd expect to finish above them. Brighton I would expect to finish above them. Aston Villa I would expect to finish above them as well. You know, and don't be surprised if you start seeing some like clubs like Burnley under Vincent Kompany surprising people next year. You know, it's very interesting to see who might. So I'm going to go with 9th because I think there are 8 teams that can finish above Spurs. But yeah, let's see if anyone else can get there. But I'm going to go with 9th because I think there are at least 8 teams that can finish above them.
I've made a list because I do like it. It's the teams that have won a trophy since Spurs last won a trophy 15 seasons ago in 2008. They won the League Cup. You've got teams like Portsmouth, Wigan, and Leicester have all won the FA Cup. Leicester have won the Premier League, and you've got Birmingham, Swansea have won the League Cup, and then you've got teams that have won no end of European competitions. So it's
West Ham.
I've not updated it to include West Ham. So I don't think Spurs, the last time they could have been really considered a top 6 team would be in the early 80s. I mean, then it wouldn't even have been a top 6 because Arsenal weren't that good back then. But there's no way. I mean, you look at the criteria. You can't not have Leicester as a top 6 side, having won the Premier League and the FA Cup. Even though they're in the Championship, they're still a bigger club than Spurs.
Yeah.
So what did you say, position-wise? I forgot to type it in. Did you say 7th?
Ninth.
Okay. FA Cup winner. Now, this one, people have gone for Newcastle, Man City, 2 for Arsenal, 2 for Chelsea, 1 for Brighton.
Again, this is where it's going to get a bit boring, I think, because, again, it's Man City. I can only put Man City down for every single one if I'm thinking logically and thinking, who do I think are the favourites for that competition? Well, Man City are the favourites for that competition. You know, to create a bit of discussion, say if Man City surprisingly get knocked out, you know, Arsenal could have a really good chance at the FA Cup next season. We've added such depth to the squad that we can rotate players within these games. I don't think you'll see, like, you know, last season we were using like Lokonga, and, you know, if El Neni was fit, he came in and scored against Oxford, and players like this, you know, and coming into this season, I think that actually Arsenal have got, like, if we're starting Thomas Partey, we can use Rice, or if Rice is starting, we can use Partey. You know, you've got Trossard in the squad now, Jorginho's in the squad now, Smith Rowe could still be getting into those second string sides. Kivior and player like Yuri and Timber may not even be starting for us, and is a £35 million signing. So there's lots of scope. Kieran Tierney's another name as well. David Raya potentially is another name, because we might be signing a competitive goalkeeper. So our second string could be really strong for next season, and I'm looking forward to seeing that in all of its glory. Reece Nelson signing a new deal as well. You know, I'm excited to see what he can bring to us this season also. But other clubs, I think Brighton are a decent shout. I think they'll take that competition really seriously, as will Newcastle as well, looking to try and get silverware. Aston Villa will also be trying to take that competition really seriously. I think those clubs, the Brightons, the Newcastles, the Villas, look at those domestic cups and think, you know, we can catch the bigger sides perhaps off guards by going full tilt in these competitions, and, you know, also get the benefit perhaps of an easier run also. So I'm going to say Man City, but I think that Arsenal and those clubs I've mentioned have got some really good chances.
I mean, realistically, if you put all the data into a supercomputer, the answer would be Man City for everything.
Yeah.
Because they are. I mean, you don't go and win the what they won last season and this season go and win nothing. They've still got to be the favourites for absolutely everything. So you're going to say the same for the League Cup as well?
Yeah, I think it's a copy and paste job. For everything I just said for the FA Cup, I think goes into the League Cup as well.
How about the Champions League?
Yeah, so the Champions League's interesting. I still went with Man City again, just because I think they are the best team in Europe. And so Real Madrid look really good. They would be my next choice for the team that could win it as well. I think they've obviously strengthened with Jude Bellingham coming into the team, and that's going to be exciting to see how he performs. It's mad to me how he's not even reached his 20th birthday yet, and yet, you know, he's played at Dortmund at the top level. He's had that big move to a massive European club. Then he's made another move to a massive the biggest, arguably, European club on the planet in Real Madrid before his 20th birthday. It's an amazing career that he's having. He, along with Bukayo Saka, you know, are the best 2 English youngsters in the world. Phil Foden's in that conversation also. So Man City are still there, but Real Madrid are very, very close behind. I would have said, you know, Real Madrid, but they were so kind of meagerly dropped out of the competition last time. And they didn't necessarily offer too much threat in the end. And Man City almost coasted their way to the trophy in the end. I know they only beat Inter Milan 1-0, but Inter Milan didn't ever really look like, you know, they were going to win that game. And Man City just know how to win trophies. So sadly, the theme of Man City continues onwards, because they are the favourites for every competition that they enter right now.
It is indeed. And although Real Madrid have got the huge benefit of only having 2 teams in their league really that can compete with them, or maybe even only one. But even Barcelona, as we saw pre-season, they had half their team's free transfers. Decent players, but free transfers. They're not the Barcelona of old. So that's why they're so good in the Champions League, because their domestic league isn't as strong as it used to be. I mean, I hardly ever watch it anymore. What are you going to go for top Premier League player, goal scorer, all competitions? Everyone said Haaland, apart from Mike, because he's a blogger. He said Nkunku of Chelsea.
Yeah, Nkunku's definitely going to be up there. I think he's certainly a very good sign for Chelsea. He's the player they kind of needed. But I think, you have to go with Erling Haaland, because He's just a cheat code. Like, he is just a cheat code for the Premier League, and for any league for that matter, for the Champions League, for the Bundesliga when he was there, for the Austrian League when I watched him at Salzburg, and I knew that he was going to be this crazy guy. I remember tweeting about it when he was scoring goals for Norway, and he was like a teenager at that point, and you could see that he was going to turn into some monster of a player that would just not stop scoring goals. And it's so sad that he's come to the Premier League for Man City. You know, I suppose it's easier to see him play for Man City than it is for a likes of like turning Chelsea or Liverpool or Man United into a world beater, because City already were world beaters. But it sucks because obviously City are Arsenal's main rivals, and we have to go up against a team that arguably have the heir to the Ronaldo Messi throne in regards to, you know, who is going to be the player that takes that on if he hasn't done so already, with him and Kylian Mbappe being probably the next two. So, and Vinicius Jr. out there, of course, as well. But I think that, you know, if Arsenal have a hope of winning a league, it might take a Haaland injury, you know, for that to potentially happen. And even then, they've got Julian Alvarez, who's fantastic as well. So, yeah, it's always going to be Haaland.
52 and 53 last season, unbelievable numbers for a debut season in the Premier League, and yeah, it's he's definitely going to do it again. Championship winner. Normally I wouldn't ask, but 3 really strong teams went down last season. You've got some other really good teams in there from last season that got to the playoff finals and stuff like that. So who are you going to go for?
Yeah, I think all the shouts for Southampton are fair. I think that what Southampton have going for them, as to which I would choose them as my favourite for the promotion, is that they invested a lot in some really young players that obviously in the Premier League were under a lot of pressure to perform in a relegation battle. And actually, I think Southampton next season are going to give these kids a lot more opportunities to flourish in that league and to get more minutes against teams that Southampton should be a lot more dominant in. Yes, they've lost players and they're going to continue to lose some players, but I think that along with Leicester City, you know, Southampton are going to be favourites. Leicester City adding Steffi Mavadida, you know, former Arsenal player, of course, former Charlton player as well. I think somebody like him is a really good signing for a championship side to make. You know, you look at Mavadida and what he did at Montpellier, he was scoring plenty of goals. So a championship side being able to secure him is really strong. They've kept Jamie Vardy, of course. That gives them a great chance of getting plenty of goals through him. But I think Southampton's youthful sides and improvement from last season will help them in that sense. It seems like James Ward-Prowse will eventually move on, but who knows? There might be a chance that he ends up staying at the club as well. And I think, you know, it will be very interesting to see who ends up winning the championship, because it's probably the hardest league to kind of predict, because it's just the most competitive that there is. But yeah, did you go with Southampton? I think you went with Leicester City in the end.
Yeah, Leicester.
Yeah, I think it's between them two easily.
It'd be amazing watching Ward-Prowse next season up against championship goalkeepers with those free kicks. They're not going to stand a chance, are they? Because he was probably the best free kick taker in the Premier League for season after season, or one of the best ones, scoring regularly. And he's just going to terrorise goalkeepers. So he should stay there. He'd do a Matt Letizia and be there for the whole of his career. Be another legend for them. I know West Ham have made a few bids for him. I think they're up to 25, 30 million. And now I think they've said, we're not going to make any more bids. But yeah, West Ham are just getting from Southampton what West Ham did to us. So yeah, good luck with that. First manager to be fired. We've had quite a few different ones here. I've gone for the Spurs manager. Someone else has. Gav from Shiro has gone for Pochettino because he hates Chelsea. Lopetegui is someone's gone for him, and Cooper and Moyes at West Ham. I think that was a bit of a shot in the dark, because after winning a European trophy, so what are you going to go for?
You know, it's really funny you say that, because Moyes is actually the one I've gone for. So
they do expect.
I would have sacked him after they won the Conference League. I think that they won that competition. It wasn't to do with David Moyes, and that might seem really controversial. I just think they're the best team. They had the best team in that competition. You know, the players that they had: Declan Rice, Lucas Paqueta, you know, Pablo Fornals, Jarrod Bowen, Ogbonna, Zuma, Ben Rama. They had the best team in that competition, and so it isn't a surprise that they won it. I actually think they made it harder for themselves than they needed to. But when your midfield is worth, you know, close to £200 million with Souček, Rice, and Paquetá in there as well. You should be winning that competition if you're West Ham United, in my opinion. And they struggled to it. And they were involved in a relegation battle last season as well. For me, David Moyes has been a coach that has failed to get the best out of the resources available to him. That was a side that should have been comfortably in the top half of the table last year and didn't get there. And I fear as though that will happen again. I remember Antonio was on a podcast and he was talking about Scamacca and like why Scamacca was not working at West Ham, and it's because of David Moyes liking a player that does certain things. And he described all the things of kind of like a relegation battle striker and what they need to have with the physicality, and you're feeding off scraps and stuff like that. You know, they have players like They had players like Paquetá, and they had a player like Rice. They should have been brilliant with Scamacca as their striker. He should have been getting chance upon chance with technical players like Fornals and Bowen and Ben Rama supporting him. You know, I think that ultimately, if they get a coach in that can produce some really good football and has a really good philosophy, at the end of the day, they will maximise, you know, that squad. They will maximise the qualities. But I just don't see that under Moyes. And the faster he goes, and I speak from someone whose mother-in-law is a West Ham fan, so there's always part of me that wants to see them semi-okay. That said, I've hated the way their fans have been throughout the whole Declan Rice saga. I'm laughing at their transfer window so far. It's brilliant. They've just lost another player. I think Ajax have hijacked a deal for a Man City youngster that they were going for, Borges, I think it was, in the last few hours. So they've lost him as well. But my mother-in-law will not certainly praise me for this. But David Moyes has to be sacked as soon as feasibly possible.
I remember the last pre-season we were linked to Scamacca, and I was watching some of the stuff he was doing with Sassuolo, and he was like an angry Giroud. And some of the stuff he was doing, and the skills that he was doing, the goals he was scoring. And at no point did I see Moyes playing to his strength, not even using him in European competitions, going, well, you've played in Europe. And a wonderful player. And he's going to go to, it looks like he might go to Inter Milan now. And he'll go there and he'll pick up from where he left off at Sassuolo. What a wonderful player.
But, absolutely. He was a player that was on Arsenal's radar as well. You know, like Arsenal were looking at him. Aaron Hickey was another name mentioned as well at that time. I think Arsenal were looking at him.
He was playing in Italy, wasn't he? The fullback.
Yeah.
Did he go to Brentford?
I think it was that he was at. He went Brentford, left back, right back. You know, really versatile. What Arteta likes. We didn't commit to it in the end, and I'm glad that we didn't, because I think, you know, getting Zinchenko was a great bit of business for Arsenal in the end, and getting Timber this summer is an even better, perhaps, you know, a bit of business as well. So, but Scamacca. You know, you look at that team, Scamacca, as I say, Paquetá, they need to bring in a midfielder to replace Rice. You know, that should have been a priority. They should have had names on a list. The fact they're going for James Ward-Prowse is such a David Moyes type signing. It's not the right signing they should have gone for. You know, you look at someone, and Chris will like me for this, but you look at where Enzo Lafille has gone from Lorient to Rennes. If West Ham had gone for Enzo Lafille, that would have been a really good piece of business by West Ham. You know, you look at West Ham and you think they can get a guy like Enzo Lafille into the Premier League instead of going to Rennes. If they want to bring in, you know, wide players, they should be looking to bring in some young guys as well, and, you know, allow Bowen to be more of a presence. But I just can't get my head around that club and some of the decision making that's going on there. It's ridiculous.
You're getting some grief in the chat. Stephen says, is Tom putting City for our top goal scorer as well? And Bronco is saying Man City for the quad. And Womble says, last manager to be fired, Southgate, because like the FA like Magnolia paint. Well, he's doing the job as much as I don't like him, but he can't argue that he's doing the job that he's getting paid for. Right, there you go. That's 28 minutes of quality content there for you people. I will be collating these at the end of every day and putting them in a podcast and releasing that podcast that will be on all the usual places. Tom, thank you very much for your time. And where can people, as if anybody doesn't know where they can find you, but if someone was watching who's never watched a podcast before, where can they find you?
You can find me every morning at 8 a.m. UK time live on the Gooner Talk doing our news roundup every 24 hours. And if you want to see my written work, you can find it at football.london. I'll be at the Emirates Cup tomorrow covering the game, so I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully see Arsene Wenger as well, who's being commemorated with his statue at that game. So yeah, that'll be very interesting indeed.
It's a lovely thing they have done, and people were complaining that he wasn't holding the little trophy. He'd look silly if that thing was.
He didn't lift the little trophy. He lifted the main trophy.
Yeah, he did. That one was for his mantelpiece only. It looked very silly him holding that up.
Mm.
Right. I don't think we've got anyone else for the 6 o'clock show yet. So the next one is going to be at 7 o'clock, and that is going to be, I think it's going to be Carl. 7 o'clock, it's going to be Carl from ABW. So we'll be back then with Carl's predictions and him calling me a silly boy and probably telling me off, because that's what Carl does. So thank you very much to everybody that's watching. Thank you very much, Tom. And we will see you again at 7 o'clock. Goodbye.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
He nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I was just eating a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at Ibs, so when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on and bosh, Bob's your uncle.